Hi, my name's Jessica Fosterkew. I'm hosting the day today. I'm a comedian, an actor, a writer, podcaster, and a mum. And we've got the most amazing day of conversations and events and stuff for you to join in with here. And it's all going on. My job here today is to introduce all the speakers we've got and stuff like that, and at one point do an interview. But as a sideline from being a comedian, I'm actually like real badass timekeeper. So I'll be mate. I mean, we're already nearly running over, and it's killing me. Yeah, so it's going to be great. And today, I'm just sort of reiterating what Jolie said, really. Today's all about our experiences of pregnancy and parenting and mixing parenting with work and everything that entails. And I think as well about empowering us to improve our collective experience of that really a little bit and eventually work towards, why not, let's be really optimistic, and let's work towards an eventual utopia where we can go back to the exact hours that we want, in the exact locations that we want. And then when we get there, there'll be like an amazing padded room where you can go in and there's all like sterilised stuff where you can send bottles home, check on a video camera what's happening wherever your child is, like that live stream, only if you want it, obviously, no pressure. Also, if you need to express, there can be like an amazing sink-in armchair thing where these two like other things come down, and there can be like an iPad or maybe even a cinema, why not? Your favourite box set on it, that'd be perfect. Whatever seat you sit on at work has got one of them donuts built in, not too obviously. Maternity pads everywhere, some of that greasy sheep thing, lanolin thing for your nips. I've taken it too far, but we get the gist. Honestly, looking at the lineup for what's happening today, I am jealous of you, basically, getting to just sort of take it all in. I'm as happy as you are to be here. I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? I've got a 3-year-old, and juggling work is a constant juggle. Well, I mean, that's my first ever childcare. Was unexpected, and by childcare I don't mean my partner or my parent, I mean a stranger I've paid, was a surprise. My son was 6 months old, and I'd taken him to nursery for what all I was told was it's a settling in day, settling in a few hours, and I thought I obviously had to sit there and watch him settle in, and got there and they went, "No, Mum, you go home for 2 hours," and I was like, "What?" Okay, thank you very much, miss. It was one of the most memorable 2 hours of my life. I got home and was like, I'm going to have a cup of coffee while it's hot. I'll probably have a bath. Should have a bath. Don't even need to have a shower. Got time for a bath. But then it began. Then it was like, but you should probably check your emails, shouldn't you? And what about, I tell you what, it's been a long time since you sat down and tried to write a joke, isn't it? Try and write a joke if you want. Why not? Actually, why don't you try and write a whole sitcom? And then in the end, I spent the entire 2 hours like a shark. I didn't stop moving, like starting 50 things, didn't finish one of them. And about an hour and 3/4 in, I thought, oh, this is how I'm going to die. We've all been there, or we will all be there. We're already running 3 minutes over schedule. Terrifying. No, we're going to have the most amazing day. I really hope you enjoy it. It's an honour to be here with you. We're going to have a great time. And it's time to welcome our first panel, please, to the stage. This panel is called Rock Your Return. Please welcome your host, Robyn Wilder, and her guests, Danielle Ayres, Nicola Gibb, and Christine Armstrong. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me? Because if you can't, I don't know what to do. Hi, I'm Robyn Wilder. Welcome to the first panel of the day. It's called Rock Your Return, and we're going to talk about rocking your return to work. I have with me Danielle Ayres, a employment solicitor for Gorvins. You might just have met her 5 minutes ago. We have Nicola Gibb, who is a coach at Beyond the Bump Coaching, and Christine Armstrong, who is the author of the book Mother of All Jobs. Is everybody super excited? I'm not going to do the thing where I say I can't hear you because I clearly just heard you. I'm glad we're this level of super excited at this time of the morning. So we're going to do some questions, and then I'm going to do them off my phone because I'm super professional. And at the end, if we have time for questions from you guys, we'll take some, okay? Hello to all the babies. You're lovely. Well done. So, guys, hi.
Hello.
Whenever I meet other working parents, all I want to do is grab them and say, how are you doing that? I mean, look at you. You're all polished. Your hair looks great. You're here and awake. I don't understand. I've just come dressed as a bee because that's pretty much all I can manage today. So what I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, is what is your work childcare setup? Where are your kids today? Are they okay?
I'm hoping they're okay.
Danielle, where are you? What's your setup?
I've got two little boys. They're 6 and 8. There's 18 months between them. I'm hoping they're okay. They're with their dad, so they should be okay. He had football at 9 o'clock and then another football match at 10:30.
Oh, blimey, so not a restful
So
day.
usually we do one and the other. And our setup is very like that. I found it very difficult when I went back to work after my first one because I felt like it was all on me. And even though I worked 3 days a week, if one of them was poorly, it would always be me that would stay off. So, and my husband is really supportive, I don't want to take that away from him, but it did take us sitting down together and me just going, I can't do this on my own, like I can't, it's not just me. I'm only in the office 3 days anyway, so if I have one out, that means 2 days, whereas you're in 5. So we juggle it, but we do it together. It's
That's
a lot
really
better
important.
once we got on that wavelength.
Yeah. Do you find that, Nicola? Do you have a setup that works?
Yeah, weekends work really well. I mean, we divide it really well at weekends. I'll admit, during the week we don't have it perfect at all. The majority of it falls to me. I think that's mainly my... Let's hope he's not listening. My partner's boss is very, very old school. He thinks it should be my responsibility, and has even gone so far as to say, you know, if my partner said, oh, well, Nicola's got a big meeting on today, not my problem.
Ooh.
So, you know, it is difficult, and we're still working on it. Luckily, I've designed a life and a job that means that I can be flexible. But yeah, it can be tough. Yeah. In terms of where they are right now, one is watching Mary Poppins with the brownies, and the other one is at the shops with their dad. So they're okay.
You don't actually have to tell me my kids are okay. I'm not the police.
Well, we're all just checking in now, so just hoping they're okay.
Christine, how do you set it up?
I've got 3 girls. They are 9 and 7 and 4. And the 4-year-old started school in September. Yes, so I actually have 3 in school, which feels like this amazing piece of progress in my life. And just like makes everything like easier to manage. And also our school, it's a state school, but it has a longer school day that goes to either 4 or 5 o'clock, which is just brilliant and makes such an amazing difference. But I have to tell you, there's a massive downside, is that we have really long holidays, and that is a shit show. So, you know.
Well, I'm just waiting for I've got a 3-year-old who's about to turn 4 and start school in September, and I'm listing the books I'm going to read and all the times I'm going to stay in bed. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
No. So could you share your experience of balancing motherhood with your career? Who wants to go first?
I will.
Okay.
It's bloody hard. It's hard. I think no matter what, you know, I speak to women on a daily basis from all walks of life, every part of the country, and it is tough, and it's just finding what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, I went back 3 days a week to start with. Then when I had my second, I went back 2 days a week. But I had a really supportive employer, which makes, you know, it makes all the difference. But yeah, it's still hard. We're still rushing every morning to get out the door, and then you think it's easier once they start school, but then you've got homework to do, and if you've got more than one, you've got 2 lots of homework to do, and it just seems like a constant until you get to weekend, and then you're just like, thank God for that. But yeah, it is a struggle. I can't say it's easy at all.
No, what about you?
I think at the beginning it was really, really hard because I was setting myself up as freelance, and I was incredibly apologetic to anyone who gave me any work. So it was like, well, thank you for paying me, and of course I'll do that, and of course I'll do that, and just took more and more on. And I found myself, the reason I'd left the PR industry in the first place, one of the reasons was because I didn't like the kind of smoke and mirrors side of it. I actually found myself doing it again. I actually found myself saying to a client that I had a conference call when actually I was taking the children to gymnastics. And I realised this isn't right. I'm living my life in an apologetic way, like I'm doing something wrong, and I'm not. Since leaving PR and going into coaching, it's now all down to me, and I say from the outset with my clients, I've got children just like you've got children, and stuff's going to come up. And at first it was really scary. I remember the first time I needed to go and pick up a child from school while on a coaching call, and you know what, the client just went, of course you've got to go. We're all in it together, and I think that's made all the difference. So I feel very blessed that I now work in a way where I can make that happen. But it's been a journey.
Yeah, I just on a tangent from that, you coach mothers specifically.
Yes.
What sort of inspired you to do that, and what do you help mothers with?
It kind of went the other way round for me. I think an awful lot of coaches decide they want to be a coach and then work out who they want to coach. Whereas for me, I remember being on a very, very, very rare spa day with some friends and saying, this is where I am with work, and what I want to do, I'd always enjoyed kind of leadership and development. I said, what I want to do is help mothers like me work out what they're going to do when they go back to work, or work out who they want to be in the world. But I don't know what that job is. And my friend, who's a clinical psychologist, went, well, that sounds a bit like you might need to study psychology. And I was thinking, I don't want to go back to uni for 6 years. But then I actually bumped into a journalist at an event, and she told me she was seeing a coach. I went and saw that coach, and I was like, that's it. That's the thing I've been looking for. So then the two things merged together. So from the minute I started doing my coaching training, I knew that I wanted to work with mothers. And so that's where it all started.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. Christine, you, do you talk to a lot of mothers? Because you've written extensively about motherhood and what it does to you.
Yeah, so I'm a recovering Lena Inner. So I thought that I was very career orientated. I really liked my job, you know. I wasn't that good at it in my 20s, but then as I got a bit older, I was like, yeah, I kind of got this, you know, I'm all right at this is fine, I know what I'm doing. And then I thought that when I had kids, they would just sort of fit in and I would carry on being a career person and I would just go back to work and everything would be fine. And that didn't work out well at all. Basically, I went back to work after the first. I had a new American boss who was like, gee, glad you're back, Christine. Thought maybe you would want to do 3 days, now you've got a baby. I was like, no, not really. Kind of found the maternity quite tricky, kind of happier in my safe, happy places, really work, actually. Well, don't worry, because I've taken your team, and I thought maybe you could do some PR. Maybe you could do my PR. Oh, this is going to go so badly. So I kind of, Pregnant and Screwed didn't exist at the time, so I just shuffled off and got another job. Chose really, really shockingly badly a really heavy hours macho culture. Decided the best thing to do was just to work really, really hard and just kind of power through it, and that I would somehow fix it. That didn't work so well. So then decided, I sort of thought about what to do, thought, I know what I'll do, I'll have another baby. And maybe that will help. Genuinely. Went off for maternity, quite enjoyed the second maternity, in retrospect, sort of after the first one. Then went back to work, and it was even worse, unsurprisingly, and then decided that maybe I needed a better idea. So I went to interview loads of what I called at the time power mums for Management Today, who were women with big jobs and kids, about what they were doing. And what I discovered quite quickly was that most of them were finding it really difficult. And it made me realise, I was like, well, this group's really privileged, right? This group, they have resources, and they're not making it work on the whole. They're really finding this difficult. So what does that mean for everyone else? So the book was me interviewing everyone else, really, and going, well, if you've got a normal job, then what does this look like? And you know, the realisation that it really doesn't work that well, you know. Sorry. Our working world is designed with the idea of a male breadwinner doing 9 till 5, and now we've all got dual income households, and a lot of us are always on. So we've added 9 to 5, we've added on another 6-7 hours of being online, and we're putting kids into that who have the same school day and the same and we're like, well, why doesn't it work? You're like, well, of course it doesn't work, because none of it's set up that way. So I think just acknowledging that was quite helpful, and then working around it.
Yeah, it's not that you're doing it wrong.
It's not that I'm not trying hard enough, which is what I thought for a long time.
Yeah.
And maybe I needed a bigger whiteboard or a slow cooker. Maybe that would fix it.
Stop looking at my Amazon history. It's interesting what you said. All of it is interesting. But it's also interesting what you said about what your boss said, because I think there are various ways to probably be discriminated against when you're at work. And Danielle, I'm going to come to you now, so watch out. Do you talk to people who are being discriminated against, and what kind of... Do you always know when you're being discriminated against? Is it always obvious?
I don't think it is. I think when you're there at the time, because some discrimination can be that subtle that you don't realise it's discrimination from the offset. So people will tell their boss they're pregnant, and then in the best interest of that pregnant woman, they then start taking work off them, handing it on to other employees, cutting them out of department meetings, and transferring the work all the time, saying, well, you'll be finishing soon, so we're doing you a favour, whereby just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can't carry on working until you go off work.
Yeah.
And it's only, I suppose, when they come to go back to work and they realise there's no job for them to go to, or, the person that had the training when they didn't give you the training because they didn't think you want it because you were pregnant has been promoted, that you think, hang on a minute, that's not right. So there's always some ways an underlying current of it.
Yeah.
And then there's the direct discrimination where you do know you're being discriminated against. I always say, I spoke to a woman once who'd really built herself up to go in and tell her boss that she was pregnant, and she'd gone in and said to him, I'm pregnant, and he went, no, I don't deal with pregnant humans at all. And I was like, he managed a team of 30 people. If you manage people, you're going to eventually manage a pregnant one, full stop. And so, in those situations, she's like, this is just going to go badly from here on in, as it did.
Yeah.
So no, it varies from case to case as to what you get. It really, really does. But there's those real horrible cases. But at the same time, the more subtle ones, in a way, are harder sometimes for the person to comprehend, because they're thinking, oh God, you know what? They meant to do this. They meant to kind of strip me out of the organisation. They knew I was going to ask for flexible working when I got back. So they'd put someone in there that can do my job full time.
Yeah, I think I experienced it, and I didn't even think about it. In a job, I told my manager I was pregnant, and I asked if when I came back, if I could have flexible working, and his response was, well, if I gave it to you, I'd have to give it to everybody. Everybody wants to work from home, don't they? And I didn't even think about it. I just left the office going, okay, let's see, here's a point.
Yeah, and that's such a common response.
Yeah.
You get it all the time that, oh God, I don't want to set a precedent whereby we're a flexible working culture. And it's just daft. The benefits that flexible working can bring to an organisation are massive.
Yeah, it's nuts that you have to be at your desk in an office to, why isn't, if they're trusting you to, with a company card or whatever, why can't they trust you to not be watching This Morning or whatever?
And like Christine said, half the time you want to get back into work after being off on that leave, you want to find yourself again and go back in. So even if you are working 3 days, when I went back working 3 days a week, I still did 5 days of work in 3. Even now I'm off on a Wednesday and my phone is constantly on, I'm constantly receiving emails. And you almost feel like you have to do that. It comes back again to what you were saying, that you almost put pressure on yourself to prove to people that just because you've had a baby, it's not going to impact on your career. So, it's daft that they don't allow more flexible working opportunities, because they do get so much out of individuals. When they give a little, they get a lot back.
But if someone suspects they're being discriminated against, even in the slightest way, if you go back to work and they haven't handed your projects over to someone else, but an aspect of them is suddenly somebody else is doing it, what should you start doing in that situation? Just logging it? Or?
Yeah, I think communication is key with half of these cases. So a lot of the time it is just everyone's not on the same page, everyone's not singing from the same hymn sheet, so you say, hang on a minute, I was doing that before I went off, so why have I not got it back? And that's a right that you've got. If you take up to, I know we're getting into the legals here, but if you take up to 26 weeks maternity leave, it's called ordinary maternity leave, and you have a right then to go back into the job you were in before, regardless, full stop. Okay. If you take over that, then you go back into the same job unless it's not reasonably practicable for them to put you back into that position, but that would only apply in restructure situations.
And you should have had that discussion.
So if it is that you get back and your job's not how it was before, I think the first step is to go and speak to a manager, speak to HR, say, hang on a minute, what's going on? If it is more serious, then there's always a grievance complaint that you can raise. And you can bring a discrimination claim while you're still employed. So you can carry on being in employment if it gets to a point where you think, I'm just banging my head against a brick wall, been through a grievance process, spoke to people. You can bring the discrimination claim through the tribunal and remain employed.
It's really useful advice, I think. Yeah.
A lot of people do that, as hard as it is. That a lot of people...
Yeah, it's not easy, but I mean, it's your right.
Yeah.
Nicola, how long have you been coaching mums?
3 years now.
3,
Yeah.
So, when they come to you, what is the most common thing they come to you with? Sort this.
Do you know, I would say the similarities, but everyone's really unique. But I would say the biggest thing is that they don't really know what they want or who they are anymore. So it's like there's a bit missing. So whether or not that's part of their self-identity, or not knowing what their purpose is, or just feeling a bit broken, really. And you know, in these situations, it's always I think clients can think. Hopefully they don't by the time they finish working with me. It's a bit of a cop-out, but they are there. They are there. All the answers are there. And I think that the biggest thing that women can gift themselves before they go back to work is to spend some time reminding themselves of all the things that they loved about it, hated about it, set their boundaries. I even encourage people to almost like write a manifesto of this is how I'm going to approach work when I get back. And I think that helps you to get to a point where you're not doing this apologetic. You look at it when you need a reminder, when you need some clarity in amongst all the critical voices externally, internally, wherever they're coming from, that says, no, hang on a minute, I said from the outset I was only going to travel once a month. So I'm only going to travel once a month. And it's just trying to, I think we can very much get stuck on, what am I going to do? So what flexible working, how's the childcare arrangements going to work? On all the logistics and the little bits. And the thing that I encourage women to do more than anything is really focus on who you want to be. Like who do you want to be in the world outside of the home? And maybe that's not necessarily, the word authentic gets thrown around a lot. Maybe that's not completely authentic, because actually you need to put on a bit of something when you go into a workplace. But work out who that person is you want to be, and be that person. And the other stuff, yes, it's important to work out the childcare and that kind of thing, but don't get fixated on it, because when you walk in on that first day, it's great if you know who's picking the kids up, but if you're then just sitting there thinking, I don't have a clue who I am or how I want to act, then that's when you start to crumble.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back to when I decided to go freelance. So I'm a writer, I didn't say, I'm a parenting journalist, and I wrote a parenting column for The Pool called Up With the Kids, which is lucky because I have constant material. But when I decided to go freelance, my first thought was one thing I want to do, one thing I don't want to do. The thing I wanted to do was work in my pyjamas. Which I do, yes. And the second thing I wanted to not do was just not be sitting in a meeting that I didn't need to be in when I knew that, like, my train, you know, I was doing the logistics of I need to get this train to pick this kid up, otherwise I won't see them for like a day and a half. And that's what spurred my decision. And that was like, because I didn't know who I wanted to be, I just knew pyjamas and no meetings. That was kind of, it's kind of worked out. But I do have, I think it is important, you do need to figure out not who you are so much, but like what you want now.
Yes.
Now that your world has changed a bit.
Yeah, and some of that is remembering who you were.
Yeah.
And then coupling it with the new stuff.
Yeah.
And then you become a superhero.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
But once you become a superhero and you return to work, Christine.
I'm going to add something to that, if that's all right.
Of course.
So the other thing, I interviewed some gay dads in New York who were adopting. So they adopted 2 children in the end, and both of them are from really different cultural backgrounds. And their adoption agency made them go through this really rigorous process before they were allowed to adopt. And they had to go to like therapy sessions, talk about how they were going to parent. They had to write out essays on like who was going to take time off when the kids were sick. They had to provide like budgets of exactly how the household was going to pay for childcare, and they were just laughing about it, and they were like, we look at our straight friends and we just laugh because they're just fighting over this stuff all the time. We've got it all written out from this process. We never fight over any of it. And I just thought, if you are in a partnership, and I know not everybody is, but if you are, you know, both of you talked about expectations going into it, and so many women I interview go, I just didn't realise it was always going to be me that took the day off. I didn't know it was always going to be me that booked the babysitter. I just didn't get it. And I think having those conversations, if you can have them, is really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, we had those conversations, but unfortunately we're idiots, so we were like, just like, we'll paint the nursery grey, so it's gender neutral, and that's as far as it goes. So it was all a surprise. But that's really interesting, though. And also, I find that, I mean, I don't know if you find this, if the doctor needs to call you or the nursery needs to call you, they call the mum.
Yeah.
They've got both of our phone numbers.
Yeah.
Is mine easier?
I interviewed someone whose school, one of the mums died of cancer, and they used to write all the letters, Dear Mums, and they changed it to Dear Mums and Steve.
What?
No. It's like so culturally ingrained. How awful is that?
Oh, gosh.
Sorry, that was a
That's all right, that's all right.
totally throwing you off your course. Sorry.
I've got my notes on my phone now. Come on.
Steve's thrown us back.
I have changed his name so that he doesn't know who he is. Although I'm worried that I've actually given him the right.
I wrote a Christmas card to Steve this year. Last year, I don't know Steve, it turns out. Anyway, once you are back at work, though, how do you remain sane or cling to it?
I mean, I think a lot of what Nick said is really, really important. I kind of have this thing around, mentally, I kind of call them islands of sanity, and it really came out of islands of insanity. So at one point, my 4 or 5-year-old had a swimming lesson on a Friday night at 6 o'clock. And for some reason, I decided, having worked a full week, full time, that it was really important for me as a mother to be at this fucking swimming lesson. So I used to turn up at the skanky local pool with 3 kids, right? A baby who was still feeding, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and the 4-year-old in the pool. And it was hell on. I used to call it suicide hour because it was awful. All the children would be running everywhere. I would be exhausted. I'd still be picking up emails from work in the middle of all of this, and I would just leave like shaking. And eventually I just kind of stopped. I needed you really, but you weren't there. And I just stopped and looked, and I was like, what am I doing? This is bananas. And so I just went home that one night after I was completely broken. I said to my husband, I'm never, ever taking all 3 kids to swimming, never in my life, okay? So if you don't get home, she's not going. And I'll take 1, and then I'm going for a swim, and I'm going to calm down, or I'm not taking any, that's the deal. And I've never taken all 3 again. And it's like those like little boundary decisions, but unfortunately I had to be broken in order to make those decisions. I think it'd be better to talk to someone like you and make them in advance.
But cliche as it sounds, it is that whole thing about looking after yourself first. That whole situation is now better managed because you went, what do I need? Yeah. That's really the question we should all be asking ourselves, probably about every hour. Yeah. What do I need right now? Yeah. Because at the it's always, what do the kids need? What the shopping, the shopping and the dog come before me half the time. We just need to check what we need.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we're running a bit short on time, mainly because of my own personal anecdotes. I apologise for that. But if you could go back in time to when you first returned to work, what is like the one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
Go and see Nick.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yes, obviously. Oh, gosh. I don't think you should give birth without a coach, to be honest.
No, you can come home with me.
I won the second time round. The one piece of advice,
Have you all gone blank?
No, I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and as society puts pressure on us, we put pressure on us, and I think that it is just a case of you're not going to get everything done. I've been at that swimming lesson. I know what it's like when you're sweating, and then you've got to get a kid, a wet kid, dry, and then into dry. Oh, it's awful. But it's just knowing that you can't do everything. You can't do everything, and just get done what you can, what we can get done. The homework is never Pinterest level homework in my house, but we get the homework done. So it's trying not to put that pressure on yourself. It's hard.
Yeah. You have to pick your battle. Sorry.
Yeah, you do.
I'd say work out what you want. Like, there's one thing that you know when you walk back in the door or when you decide to set up your own business. Know what it is, really deep down, not up here, deep down inside, that you want. And then work out everything else around that. Don't do the other stuff first and then try and get to that, because it then gets really messy.
Yeah.
But try and work out really, really what it is that you want.
The most miserable parents that I interview, men and women, are the people who have got really fixed assumptions. So they've made decisions that they see as unchangeable. So, for instance, they have decided that because they've had the second child, that they must get the biggest possible mortgage that they can possibly get, or the rental, in a dilapidated house, because that's what they can afford, because that's what families have, right? They have a garden. And then are just trapped by both of them having to work, and they can't step out, and it's just like, ugh. So what I just say, look, don't create any financial patterns that you can't change. I know that's a really difficult thing to say, but like, try and minimize your cost base. Don't upgrade your car because you might have an accident with a baby in it. You know, you kind of do all these things that come from somewhere in your soul that make it really stressful. So ditch as much of that as you possibly can, and then go into it and allow yourself to make decisions and not get trapped. Like, if you're doing 3 days and it's not working, fine. Allow yourself to change that at each point as the children get older, or you have another baby, or whatever else happens, or your relationship breaks up, or whatever else happens to you in life, that you can adjust. And I think the people who struggle the most are the ones that, for whatever reason, think they can't change.
Yeah, this is not what I designed.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like this. We've got 2 kids, we've got to live in this house. This is the right area.
And everyone else does that to you as well. You almost think they've got to go to football, they've got to do the swimming, they've got to do... And they really don't. My kids love a Wednesday night. They come home, they get their pyjamas on, and they sit on the couch and do nothing. Yeah. And I think they get a lot more out of that than they do with us on a Thursday. Like, quick, football, go, let's get out. So, you know, it's just...
You interview people who, like, get into one on what food they're going to eat. You know, when you have your first baby, I'm like, my baby is never going to eat anything that's processed, ever. And then about a year later, they're like, ugh. You know, I think the less of that you can get, you know, if that's really important to you, and that's what matters. I'm not taking the piss out of it at all, like, do it. But if it's the thing that's breaking you, then, you know, let it go.
Yeah. So you can't have it all and let it go.
And they need to eat the fish fingers.
Eat fish fingers. But I think, I agree, you can't have it all, and that's where you pick your battles.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, you go, well, you know, is it so important that they have the DMs, the Doc Martens, when they're 0 years old, which is what I did with my first baby. I really need some Doc Martens for my 4-month-old. £60 later, more than once, I put them on Instagram, and I think one's down the back of a radiator in a house I used to live in. I think we have time for like 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Does anybody want to ask anyone anything? Oh, a lady here in front. Hello, with your lovely scarf. Oh, we have a microphone coming to you.
Hi. Is there a legal obligation to be flexible in the workplace?
Any employee that's got over 26 weeks continuous service can make a flexible working request. So it doesn't just apply to parents. We find a lot now carers apply for flexible working, people with disabilities apply for flexible working. So you have the right to make a formal request. You can only make one in any 12-month period. So what I say to people when they come to me asking about flexible working is try and sort it out informally first, because once you put that request in, that's it, job done, you can't depart from it. I think it's really hard. I think it's so easy for employers to say no to a flexible working request, because all they need to do is deal with that request in a reasonable manner. So long as they can show that they've brought you in, spoke about it, had a chat about it, then they have to give you one of 8 reasons as to why they can't turn it down, and they're always going to find one of those 8 reasons and fit a scenario into it. So everyone has the right to make flexible workings. There's not an obligation on an employer to put that into practice. It is often easy to pick apart the reasons that they give, but like Robyn said before, half the time you've just got these employers that are like, if we let one do it, someone else is going to do it. So the flexible working request that you do put in is really important. You've got to put, if you see there's any detrimental impact to the business or what value you working flexibly can bring. So all I would say to people is make sure that is as detailed as you can. Speak to other colleagues before you do it. Make sure that they're not going to hit the team won't like this or no one else works flexibly, because half the time some people want to work full time, some people want to be in the office and are happy to do it. So I suppose in answer to your question, no. But there is a right to make that flexible working request.
Oh, there's a lady behind you with a hand in the air.
Hiya. Thought it was really interesting what you were saying, Christine, about not getting into financial patterns that you can't change. And I feel like I'm about to exactly get myself into a financial pattern that I can't change.
Sorry. Just ignore that I said it. It's fine.
Because I think I've done exactly that thought of I've got to have a big house, I've got to have a garden, I've got to have this, that and the other. And then you get into, it's just like a vicious cycle of all the things that you need. Why, I'm just interested in and I keep asking all my friends and people around me, why do we do that? And how do we stop doing that?
I think we're quite dishonest about, so this is sort of, the sort of lean in thing. We're quite dishonest about how difficult it is to have a dual income household and kids, and we're basing financial decisions on the assumption that it might work. And actually it doesn't, it's very difficult to make it work with both parents working full time. Or if you're on your own, it's even more, I've been interviewing single mums this week, and it's so, to do any sort of fixed job on your own is almost impossible with fixed hours, unless you've got a lot of family support. So I think we're quite dishonest about how difficult it is, and I think we're quite dishonest about the cost of childcare. We have the most expensive childcare costs in Europe between maternity and the 33 hours. And remember, you don't get the 33 hours if you're not in work or you want to train. So lots of people, get caught in that pattern and are excluded. And I know Sophie Walker from the Women's Equality Party is talking, but she'll talk about the importance of free childcare. But I think until we're honest about the financial costs, nobody can back up this piece of data, but the Sunday Times quoted it, so I use it. But they reckon that to have 2 children in nursery between maternity leave and the 33 hours, you need a salary of £40,000. And psychologically, when you interview families, childcare almost always comes out of the woman's income. And so you get women just going, well, there's no point in me going to work, I can't afford to. Like people saying, well, I never thought I would be that kind of woman that could afford to be at home with her kids, but now I know I'm the kind of woman who can't afford to go to work when she's got kids. And so I just think we're not honest about that, and we have to be, so that people can prepare better for it. And/or we need to change our societal structures to reflect the fact that we've changed from a breadwinner model to a dual income model, and now we need to support people in being able to do that. Sorry, that was a long answer, wasn't it? But we're all working on the breadwinner model when you could buy a house if you had a good job on dad's income, and you can't anymore, and that's what's trapping us.
I'm really sorry, but I think that's all the time we've got, everybody.
I'll be here.
My advice is to go into a garden sharing scheme.
A what?
I've got a garden. I can't afford to maintain it. I don't have the time or the knowledge. So basically, I'm going to ask my sister-in-law, who's here in the audience, to do it for me, and I'll pay her. But be honest about the fact that we've got to stop pretending that we can do all these things. Maybe if we're more honest about it, other people will feel less pressure and exert less pressure, and that way we can change the world. Thank you very much for watching. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you. It's amazing. I've got a feeling that... Give it up again. Another round of applause, please, for our panel. Thank you so much for our first panel of the day.